Welcome to a Sunny Side Up Life podcast, a show for the woman who is ready to live an abundant life full of freedom and positivity. I'm Sami and I'm on a mission to help you break free from survival mode, gain financial freedom, stay motivated, and focus on what matters most. Join the movement and let's start living on the brighter side of life together. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of a Sunny Side Up Life podcast. This is episode number 9, and today we are going to talk about why we decided to rent a house instead of buying a house. And so I've been asking for a lot of your guys' feedback on just kind of some questions that you'd like answered, topics that you'd like covered on the podcast. And one of the questions that I got, it was so great, I couldn't wait to record this episode for you guys, was why do you choose to rent a smaller home instead of buying a smaller home and increasing your equity? So I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of a backstory for those of you who aren't familiar with our housing journey, with that part of our debt-free journey. So we haven't always lived in a small house, and we are currently in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, approximately 750 square feet house. Super tiny, pretty old. I think it was built in like the 50s and all that. But we haven't always lived here. We've lived here for about a year. And I actually have an entire blog, which I will link to in the show notes for those of you who haven't read it yet. And I think there's a video vlog. Yes, there is a vlog for it as well. And it is called Why We're Selling Our House to Become Debt-Free. So it kind of talks about a little bit earlier in our journey of why we actually decided to sell our house and all about how it was our last item of debt and just kind of more of that backstory if you're interested, or if you're kind of going through the same thing in your own journey. It might kind of help you make your decision whether or not you should sell your house to become debt-free. So again, I'll link to that blog here in the show notes, and if you want to check it out and learn a little bit more. So really, for us, it was kind of a controversial topic in our family and our group of friends. And a lot of people really thought that we were crazy for deciding to sell our beautiful house. It was about 3,200 square feet. It was 4 bedrooms and an office. And we actually used that office a couple of different times as like a nursery one time, as a guest room another time. So we used it a lot as a 5th bedroom. So a lot of times I say we had a 5-bedroom house, and it was 2.5 bathrooms. The living room was probably almost as big as our entire house now. Huge house, and on about 3 acres. And it was just gorgeous and beautiful and all of that. And a lot of people would say, like, this would have been my dream house. Why would you ever want to leave? But we had our reasons for selling. And again, I talk about that a lot more in the blog, but just kind of for conversation's sake, the reasons why we were selling it was basically because, for one, it was too big. And we have since adopted minimalism. We actually adopted minimalism back at the beginning of our debt-free journey, and the two really played a good hand-in-hand part on our intentional living journey. And it got to the point where we purged and purged and purged, and we were basically just keeping furniture and keeping things just to hold a place, because no one wants an empty room, right? And we were keeping things just to have something on the shelf. And it started to feel really silly and not really align with our intentions and not really align with our true heart for minimalism. And it just felt too big. Not only that, just the maintenance of keeping up a house that big, physically cleaning it, being able to afford the maintenance, being able to afford like the repairs, and just it was so expensive as well. So it has also saved us so much money. So when we were living in that house, we had of course property taxes, our insurance, and then the house note itself, the mortgage itself. So this has allowed us to save so much money, approximately $1,400 a month, because we have downsized so much, not only in square footage, but in the age of the home. So this is a much older house that we are renting. It is in not a terrible neighborhood. Obviously, it's a safe neighborhood or we wouldn't have our kids here, but it's not a super desirable neighborhood. We don't have some amenities like we don't have a dishwasher, we don't have central air, central heat. Our laundry room is outside in kind of a laundry house, like connected to our carport. But it does allow us to have so much extra money to hit our goals, which is amazing. Plus, honestly, we really just wanted a fresh start. And this house had so much sentimental value. This house was actually my parents' dream house, and my dad was a home builder before he passed away from cancer. And it was built to be my parents' forever home. And after my dad passed away, my mom tried to keep it, and it just became too much to take care of, too expensive to take care of. And she asked, do we want to take over the house, keep it in the family? And it just felt like a no-brainer at the time. But honestly, that was really where the scale started tipping as far as us getting out of control with our debt and out of control with our spending. It was too much for us. We were too young. June was, I think, about 5 months old when we moved into this house. So we had been married not even 3 years yet. And here we were taking on this ginormous house and this ginormous amount of debt to go with it. So we really just wanted a fresh start. We wanted something that was our dream. And we kind of decided that if we were going to be in that much debt, which it was about $265,000 of our $490,000 of debt. And we kind of decided, hey, if we're going to be in $265,000 worth of debt, it really should be for our dream, not for my parents' dream, not to keep it in the family, all of that. And we really wanted to do it right from the beginning. Like I said, we had moved into this house before we could really afford it. And we were drowning in so much other debt, and we were struggling to make the monthly payments. We moved into this house with no emergency fund, no savings for repairs, and we just really wanted to do it right from the beginning. We really wanted a clean slate. So why would you rent instead of buy, right? So I kind of gave you the backstory of like why we decided to go smaller, which I think makes a lot of sense financially, but why rent instead of buy? So for us, what we had to do was we had to really weigh the pros and cons. And obviously this choice isn't right in every single situation, which is the way most personal finance works, is that it is personal and it should be personal, and it's not a one size fits all kind of thing. But I think the first thing that you have to do is you have to really weigh the pros and cons. And, for us, we just wanted to be out of debt for a little while. We really just wanted a chance to breathe. We wanted a chance to have a little less responsibility. We wanted to take our extra money and we wanted to use it on our other goals. So at the time, we wanted to fully fund our emergency fund, which we have now, a $15,000 emergency fund. We wanted to cash flow an upgrade in truck. My husband's truck was 10 years old, had over 200,000 miles. He was something in the teens. We wanted to upgrade him a truck and cash. And now we are currently saving for a fifth wheel camper. And we wanted to spend our extra money doing that. Our priorities didn't align with becoming homeowners right away. And that's okay because it's our life, it's our money, and that's what we wanted to spend our money on right now. And, I think just the chance of being able to have so much less responsibility, just being able to breathe, like I said, not having the burden and not having the debt hanging over our head. And we really we joke about this all the time about how we feel like especially in such a tiny house. We feel like we're really on vacation, like we've rented this little vacation cabin and that we've kind of been on vacation for a year, and we really just feel like this time has been so needed and that we're really recovering from the stress. I mean, we were in so much debt, you guys. $490,000 for people our age, for anybody really, but especially for people as young as we were. That's crazy. And we really just needed a time to just refresh and recover from that PTSD of having so much debt. And, we have really realized that there is so much more to it than just paying rent or paying the mortgage, and that it saves you a lot of money in other ways. Like I said, the taxes, the insurance, and the repairs. For example, since we have been in this house, we recently had to have all of our electricity, all of the wiring in our house replaced. And we just called our landlord. And he set it up. He paid for it. We stayed at my mother-in-law's overnight, and that was it. We came home and it was done. And Daniel and I were just kind of looking at each other like, really? We don't have to pay for this? Are you sure? Like, wow, this is so crazy. And it's just been such a break. It just felt like a really long vacation. And another part of it is that I feel like owning a home isn't always the smartest financial decision. And I was always taught that renting is throwing your money away. Renting is throwing your money away, And I just heard that over and over and over again as I was growing up. And so it got ingrained in my head somewhere that renting was bad and buying real estate was the only way to go. And that mindset is what got us into so much real estate debt. We had 3 pieces of real estate. We had 2 houses and a piece of raw commercial land, because all I heard was renting is bad, owning is the way to go. Owning is not the way to go when you have no savings account. Owning is not the way to go when you're putting groceries on a credit card. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It is not a smart financial decision at that point. And I think that was just kind of a life lesson that we had to learn. And there is a tipping point. There is a tipping point on when you're throwing your money away. Obviously, we're not going to stay here forever. We currently are planning to stay here probably another year or two. We're at least going to stay renting for probably 2 more years. I don't know if we're going to stay in this exact house because, like I said, it is really tiny. But we plan to rent for probably 2 more years. We plan to cash flow our camper upgrade, and we plan to start stashing money away. So the next time that we become homeowners, we can do it correctly from the get-go. We can have our large emergency fund, which is $15,000 now. We might even bump that up again when we're homeowners. And we are going to at least put 20% down when we get another home loan. And we are going to make the terms at 15 years. And we plan to not buy something that we can't pay off in less than 10. Our goal is more like 5 to 7. Which is a pretty lofty goal, I will admit. But we really want to buy something that we can pay off in at least 10 years because we don't want to be in debt forever, obviously. Being debt-free is pretty amazing. But we do realize that at some point it will tip and it will be like, okay, we are kind of throwing money away. This is money we could be spending. But that time is not now. And we have weighed the pros and cons. And we want to make sure that if we're going to be in debt again, that it's going to be for our dream and that we're going to do it correctly from the get-go. So you really just have to weigh the pros and cons for yourself and not just check the math. Check your heart as well. Because like I said, it did not make the most financial sense for us to overlap and move into this rent house before we sold our other house, but that was a heart thing. we needed to get out of that house for depression, for the happiness of our marriage, for the growth of my business. I just felt like I was beating my head against the wall with my business growth because I was so just stuck in a bubble with my personal life that I didn't have the energy and the heart to really help others like I like to with my business. And it was just so many other things. And we really just felt this call on our heart that this is the right thing to do. And we had the money in savings to cover the extra costs for a few months. We knew we were taking a huge risk. We cut back our spending a lot, and we were just like, all right, we're going to just buckle down and we're going to move into this tiny house and it's going to be okay. And so, yeah, we did check the numbers, but we checked our heart as well. So remember to weigh those pros and cons. And I really just want to encourage you that if you are feeling like you're in over your head with your house, if you hit play on this episode because you've been curious about the same thing, if you feel like your monthly payments are too much, if you feel like all the other things that come with paying for your house is too much, if your cost of living in your current city is too high, which is something I hear all the time. I know, I read something recently about San Diego, I believe, or San Francisco, one or the two. I get them mixed up. I think it was San Francisco, that if you make under $100,000 a year, you're considered below poverty or at poverty or something. That's not a fact. So don't fact check me on that one. But my example stands correctly. Like if you are in a current city that you just feel like your cost of living is too high. One of my Instagram friends, Michelle, her and her family moved from California to Minnesota because of the cost of living. And it can be done, you guys. And everyone is probably going to think you're crazy, but oh well, because you have goals, right? So I want to encourage you to be brave enough and be bold enough to maybe consider moving. Maybe you need to move. Maybe you need to sell your house. Maybe you need to change cities or even states. And I know that it seems crazy, but before all of this, we had never even considered moving in order to get out of debt. When we first started our journey, we decided that, oh, okay, I guess we're going to have to just pay this house off at some point. Because there were family reasons why we were staying. There were emotional reasons why we were staying. Everyone else told us that the house is beautiful. How can you not love it? Renting is throwing money away, right? All the other, we had never even considered selling the house to get out of debt. Now, knowing what we know and knowing that we knew that we could have a huge chunk of our debt, like half of our debt, gone just by selling the house. That was a huge weight off. And it made a lot of the other emotional decisions a lot easier. No, it wasn't like just a cut and dry, all right, sell the house. No emotion behind it. But it was something that we had to check our hearts with. We had to stay in communication with each other as a couple. And, we had to weigh the pros and cons for ourselves. And, I know that some people will even say they can't sell because they won't make any profit. You guys, but you've got to think of the long-term picture. We didn't make a ton of profit. We lived there for 6 years, I believe, and we came out with about a $5,000 check. I don't really think that math makes much sense, really. That was not an investment at all. We put way more than that into it in repairs. So, think about how much money you really owe on your house and think about how far you could go with your dreams if you had that money free. And think about how much you'll be able to save to hit those other goals, to hit those long-term amazing goals that you have. We talked a couple episodes ago about our big vision. Is your home that you currently live in your big vision? If it's not, then do you need to sell it? Do you need to plan to remodel it, upgrade it? What do you need to do? Make sure that you're considering your home in your long-term big picture, amazing goals for your life. And I just want to encourage you that if you have never considered this as a way to get out of debt, definitely consider it. It is a great option. I feel like a lot of people don't talk about it enough. And, the truth is that you can cut coupons, you can get rid of your cable, you can not go to Starbucks, you can do all those things. And of course, those are helpful. But for us, the biggest thing that we did to really pack a huge punch to our debt was to sell our house. We actually sold all 3 pieces of our real estate. And there's a lot of, it's kind of silly. Like, it's not really, I don't know, it's not really drama or anything, but in the debt-free community, a lot of people will say like $100,000 of debt gone and nothing sold. Like, shout out to those people. That's amazing. But for those of us who are real estate hoarders, like we were, and we had 3 pieces of real estate, selling our real estate, and starting with a clean slate, moving into a tiny rent house was an amazing way for us to get out of debt. And the freedom that comes with it is so, so worth it. So I really hope that this has answered y'all's questions about this. Reach out to me if you have any more questions. Of course, comment in the post for this podcast episode on Instagram and Facebook. If you have any further questions, I would love to answer them because I think this is a topic that we could dig even more into, and we definitely can if you guys have more questions. But remember, most of all, to weigh the pros and cons for yourself, and that's all that matters is your personal situation, what works best for you and your family and your long-term goals, and to not just check the numbers, check your heart as well. So I hope that helps. Thanks again for joining me for another episode. Remember to check the show notes for this episode and all of the previous episodes at asunnysideuplife.com/podcast. There you can scroll down and select all of the previous episodes to check all the show notes, all the links that I mentioned, and all of my other great resources to help you get started on your own budgeting journey. You guys, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review, and share on social media with your friends and family. You guys are doing an amazing job and showing me so much love, and I'm so grateful and so appreciative for all of your support. And I will talk to you guys next week.